Okay, let's continue with our theories and theorists. So the cognitive perspective. And in the last PowerPoint, we left off with the differences between behaviorism and social cognitive theory. And now we're moving on to the cognitive perspective, championed by the amazing Jean Piaget. If you've taken any child development courses or any psychology courses, I know you have heard about Piaget. Let's see. So this perspective or this theory focuses on the process that allows people to know, understand, and think about the world. So Piaget's specific theory focuses on the same process and how people internally represent and think about the world. He postulated that there were four major stages of development: sensory motor, pre-operational, concrete, and formal operational, and that the sequence is universal, so that every child is going to pass through these stages around the same time. I am not going to go over each stage right now. They are in your book, and we will get to them later when we get to infancy, toddlerhood, early childhood. We will talk about Piaget's different theories in those contexts. But for now, here's videos that you can watch and things you can read about each stage. And this is a great video, an infographic of the different stages, so please take the time to watch this video. So Piaget's basic concept. So he said that every child is constantly going through their environment by assimilating and accommodating new information. So basically, we walk through the world with what are called schemas, so patterns of action involved in acquiring or organizing knowledge. I like to call them personally mental blueprints. How to act, how to get from point A to point B. So we have a schema for everything: how to go to the grocery store, how to go to the dentist, how to log onto a computer, a schema for how to talk to our mother-in-law, how to talk to our spouse. And so basically what happens is there's something called adaptation, assimilation, and accommodation. So adaptation is basically the interaction between the child and the environment. It is something that happens to the child. In assimilation, the child responds to a new thing, a new object, a new event in their environment, and then they change or modify their scheme to reflect the existing environment or new information. So people understand and experience things in terms of their current stage of development, their current schema. And assimilation also means we use current ways of understanding the world to perceive and understand new experiences. And I will give you a concrete example of this in a second. And then accommodation. This is adjusting the scheme to a new object or event. Changes in existing ways of thinking in response to encounters with the environment or with new stimulus and events. Okay, so, and then equilibration, a process of restoring equilibrium after a period of accommodation. So what does that all mean, Stacy? All right, let me give you this example. So you have a young toddler and they have a schema for a bird. Okay, so maybe in their schema, a bird, or maybe you have your own for a bird. So it has a beak, it has two eyes, it chirps, maybe it pecks, it flies, it has wings, it has a tail, it has feathers. So this is your schema for a bird. A child has their own. And one day they see an airplane flying over and they say, "Look, mama, dada, nana, whoever, bird." And we've all seen toddlers do this. And the person with them says, "Oh, that's an airplane." So now the child has an adaptation in their environment where now they are thinking, "Well, I've never seen a plane. What's a plane?" So they are assimilating new information. Their current understanding of a bird now no longer exists. So now they're having to rework in their mind what a bird is. Okay, so a bird flies and has feathers, but now an airplane flies, has wings, has no feathers. Maybe it flies higher than a bird. It has writing on it that says US Airways or Delta. So once they have assimilated this new information, they have accommodated it, they have adjusted their current way of thinking into a new way of thinking. So now they have a schema for a bird, and they have a new schema that they have accommodated that is for an airplane. And this equilibration, so let me tell you what happens, and this is what I love about Piaget. There's this stage in learning called disequilibrium, and that is that stage where you've just learned something new and it's uncomfortable because it contradicts your current way of thinking. So in that child, at the moment they say, look, there's an airplane, and you say to them, or they say bird, and you say, no, airplane, there is a state of disequilibrium. It is uncomfortable for children, and they want to make sense of it, and they want to get out of the disequilibrium. So they adjust, they accommodate a new schema. Once that is formed, balance is restored. Now they have equilibration. So things make sense to them. And I have another video here to sort of demonstrate that. Within the cognitive perspective, we have Piaget, and then we have information processing theory. And the best way I can describe this theory, you guys, it's like a computer. It's seeking to understand the way that we take in, use, input, store information. There's encode, storage, and retrieval that our brain goes through. We can thank modern neurological cognitive sciences for this advancement. And basically, they just added on and added a little more validity to Piaget's theories. Also, with this new model of scientific learning, they began to realize that there were some limitations to Piaget's theory. So he thought there were these universally fixed stages that every child went through at certain times of development or certain ages. With information processing theory, they realized that children were able to acquire these skills far earlier than Piaget could have observed. Okay, sociocultural perspective. This is a big one. We have an assignment on this. We have a peer discussion about this. We cannot move forward in child development and in this course until we talk about this. So basically, sociocultural perspective states that culture shapes how children develop. We know this. This is true. Cognitive development is a result of social interactions between members of a culture, a society, and an environment. And people and settings influence a child, and in turn, the child influences people and settings, or we call this reciprocal transaction. And then Vygotsky stated that children develop cognitively through play and cooperation with others. He coined the term zone of proximal development, or ZPD, and scaffolding. So zone of proximal development. This is a range of tasks and skills that can be I am reading and talking too fast. It's a range of tasks that children can perform with the help of a more knowledgeable other, someone more skilled than them. This is usually a teacher, another adult, oftentimes a peer who is older or more experienced than them. Knowledge is dependent upon previous learning and new instruction, and there's conversations, external and internal, all of which guide learning. And then scaffolding is just a peer, a more knowledgeable other, an adult, providing problem-solving methods until the child can perform them independently. And basically, when you scaffold, you're supporting that child with a task, with careful intervention. It's something that they can almost do on their own, but just need a little bit of help. And if you think about when you've ever seen a house being painted, they set up scaffolding. So you set up the foundation level, then you stand on that, and then you build the piers, and then you put the next plank of wood, and you stand on that. So that's scaffolding. The ecological systems theory, and this considers the relationship between individuals and their physical, cognitive, personality, social, and physical worlds. Influences in the environment are interconnected, and change in one system affects other parts of the system. This could also go with Vygotsky's theory as well. And we cannot view a child's world without seeing them in their complex social and cultural context. So I said this in one of the earlier videos. I think it was in our introduction video in chapter 1. And I said you cannot understand a child and their development without a context. Every child is born in a context. They are born with a set of beliefs, or what is also called funds of knowledge. These are passed through them through their environment, through their culture, through their subcultures, where they live, where they were born, what education level their parents had, what access to healthcare do they have? Do they have access to quality, good nutrition? Were they raised in isolation? Were they raised in an individualistic society or a more pluralistic society? All of these things help us understand how children develop, and we can't separate the two. Let's see. I want to make sure I get everything here. Brofenbrenner, he's a big one that I will keep referencing back along with Vygotsky and socioculturalism. So Brofenbrenner basically stated that there's these 5 systems that govern our world and how we think about it. And this is a great infographic, a great picture that I love for people to look at. So right here in the middle is the child. And this is the contextual system I'm talking about. This is the context that a child is being raised in. So within their microsystem, we might call this the nuclear family, the mom, the dad, the aunt, the grandma, who's ever raising them. It's the school they go to, it's the health care that they get, who they're friends with, their neighborhood that they grew up in, maybe there's child care, and then you move out. And for the sake of time, I'm going to let you look through these, and we will get to these eventually, I promise. But basically everything right down to your neighbors, your parent education level, the school system that you go to, the governing board, the state you were in, the president of the country that you live in, and other environmental factors. Now listen when I say this is so important. It is always important when I teach this, but there's always a historical, cultural, and political climate that we can talk about every time I teach this. But right now, we have fires, we have pandemics, we have political parties at each other's throats. We really have to understand that the context we are raising our children in right now is very different than any other generation before. That's not to say that other generations didn't have to deal with their fair share of things. But we need to understand that within our microsystem, they are affected by the mesosystem and the ecosystem and the macrosystem and the chronosystem. So right now, a perfect example of that is my daughters are inside right now because there are wildfires in California. And as I am bringing this video to you, I can see smoke outside of my windows. My girls cannot go outside and play because the air quality is so horrible. I am raising them with that. I am also raising them during a pandemic with COVID. I am raising them with online learning. I am raising them without the presence of their neighbors and their grandparents because we can't see them due to COVID and we can't see neighbors due to poor air quality. We have a political climate with a president. We're in a voting time. All of these things are interconnected and interrelated and will no doubt in one way or another have an effect on how my children turn out, how your children turn out, how your siblings turn out, and if you are young enough and watching this, how you turn out. So I think this is a really fundamentally important thing to discuss, and we will discuss it all throughout the semester. Biological perspective, I'm just going to quickly talk about this. This focuses on the instinctive pre-programmed behaviors in organisms like humans. We have Charles Darwin, he did the theory of evolution, and we have Konrad Lorenz, who studied ethology. And ethology is the study of animal behavior. So he was the first one that found out that when, or that studied at least, that when a little gosling, a little duck, a little chick, a little bird was first born, whatever they saw first, they would imprint on and thought that that was their mother. So he would hatch little birds and then they would follow him after birth. So it was pretty fascinating when talking about bonding and attachment. I'm going to let you look at discontinuous and continuous growth. There's great things in the chapter about that. Oh, and that is actually the end. You can look to Canvas for more information. I have supplemental videos and different things that you can look in regards to chapter 1. But as always, any questions or any clarification on material, please do not hesitate to reach out. I am so happy to continue this conversation with you.